Good evening, and welcome to tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals hearing. Let me introduce some members of town government that assist this board. To my left is Simone Bogarty, Assistant Town Attorney. To her left is Blaise Donadio, a planner in the Planning Department. You're all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide this board with precise and accurate information so we as a board can make a decision based on the facts presented. This board must consider the 5 area variance considerations in order to render a decision, and they are as follows. They're also posted up here for you. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some feasible method for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Number 3, whether the variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates of postings and mailings to Mr. Donadio, if you haven't done so already. And then you'll be asked to go to the podium. We will state your name and address for the record, and then proceed to tell us why you need your variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are 2 ways to find out about your case. You can call the Planning Department tomorrow after 12 p.m., or you can wait and be notified by mail. We do have 4 adjournments tonight. The first adjournment is case number 19112, Timothy Drake. Anyone here for that case? That has been adjourned to May 7th. The next case is case number 19117, Jeffrey Petruccio. Anyone here for that case? That also has been adjourned to May 7th. The next case is case 19113, J. Nazaro Partnerships LP, Taco Bell. Anyone here for that case? Nope. That has been adjourned to May 21st. And the last case is case 19061, Mary Sue Namus. Is anyone here for that case? It's been adjourned. This is the 3rd and final adjournment. Okay, it's been adjourned to May 21st. Okay, thank you.
All good?
Yeah.
Ready? Okay. The first case on the agenda, case number 19114, Michael Napolitano, 80 Gibbs Pond Road, Nesconset. The location of the property is the corner of Gibbs Pond Road and Midwood Avenue. The property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 45 feet to 0 feet on Gibbs Pond Road, to reduce the setback from lot line from 10 feet to 0 on Midwood Avenue for proposed 6-foot PVC fence.
Good evening.
How you doing? Mike Napolitano, 80 Gibbs Pond Road, Nesconset, New York, 11767. Got a little speech here for you, if it's okay.
Go right ahead.
Okay. I would like to note that I'm requesting a variance for a 6-foot PVC fence in the 3 areas shown in my presented survey. 3 areas presented on my survey. 8 feet back from the curb would be a perfect spot. Please note, I am not requesting a retaining wall or anything above 6 feet. I'm also not requesting to enclose the property with a fence as well, nor go past my driveway, as I know that's not allowed. The reason for my request is I have an odd-shaped property, and I understand you can't put a 6-foot PVC fence in the front yard, but due to my odd-shaped property, it's a wooded area. Say that again? Are you typing? So due to my odd-shaped property, I understand you cannot have a 6-foot PVC fence in your front yard. But due to my odd-shaped property, my house faces a wooded area on the other side of my driveway, not my neighbor's home. I'm on the corner of two main roads, Gibbs Pond and Midwood, where there's lots of fast-moving cars. There's lots of things that get thrown on my property by the cars going by, like beer cans and bottles, etc. I think because if people see the wooded area, they can throw things there. It will be safer with the fence there. I've been told by the kids.
Does it work?
Sorry, it's going in and out. I've been told that the kids walking down at night in Midwood can take a pee break in the back corner of my property because it's a wooded area as well. This fence will stop that. I have a 5 and a 7-year-old that like to play in the yard, and this will keep them safe and will also reduce the noise from the cars going by as well. I'm looking to remove the dead trees in the areas and replace them with a fence so the property be safer and clean looking. Me and my wife have been saving for this project for several years now, not knowing the approval process along with the cost. Approval process and not knowing the cost associated with it. I've spent $1,000 already on this variance, if it'll even be approved. Not asking for anything crazy, and I truly begging your approval for this project so my property be safer and cleaner. I thank you again for this opportunity to present my case and your consideration. The Napolitano family.
Okay. Let's talk about Gibbs Pond first, Gibbs Pond Road. You're planning on putting the fence behind those poles, correct? This telephone pole,
Oh, of course.
electrical poles
Oh,
that
of
go
course.
along there with also some kind of rods coming down to keep
It's
them
all,
upright.
it's all past that. That's probably about 3 feet from the curb. I want 8.
8 feet?
Those from the curb, I want to go 8 feet.
You're
So
going to go
it's
8 feet on Gibbs Pond.
correct.
Okay. Now, on Midwood, you're just going from your property line up to your driveway, right?
So you see those trees? I'm going to be removing those trees, and I want to go 8 feet back from that curb.
Right, right to the driveway,
Only up to that driveway, correct?
only up to the driveway.
Yep.
Not past there.
Yep.
And that you want, how far?
8 feet back.
8 feet also. Okay. All right, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on the application?
No, thank you.
No? Planning?
I just want the board to be aware that the applicant's property actually goes into the town right-of-way. If you take a look at the survey, you can see that the curb line actually goes through his property. So he may not be 8 feet back from the curb, but he's 8 feet back from his property line. So just so you're aware.
All right,
You know, he's got that difficulty to deal with.
all right, thank you.
Okay?
Sabrina?
Thank you.
Nothing. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19116, Claudio and Yalia Vera, 66 Wicks Path, Comac. The location of the property is the west side of Wicks Path, 190 feet south of Seminole Drive. The property is owned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce, I'm sorry, I skipped one. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Carmine, I'm sorry. The adjournments threw me off. All right, we'll get back to it in 1 minute. The next case is number 19115, Michael Massa, 115 50 Acre Road South. The location of the property is the corner of 50 Acre Road South and Arthur Drive. The property is owned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum setback to the front lot line on 50 Acre Road South from 40 feet to 28 feet for an existing 6-foot PVC fence along 50 Acre Road South.
Good evening.
Good evening. Michael Massa, 115 50 Acre Road South, Smithtown, New York, 11787. So we're hoping to maintain the 6-foot fence that falls a little in front of our house line. We are installing an in-ground pool, and so we got a building permit for the in-ground pool, and the setback for the pool is on the house line, which is 40 feet back from the curb. We have an existing fence that juts out a little bit in front of the house, and it wouldn't give us room to have the pool based on like the odd-shaped lot that we have with where the pool would fall. We don't really have much room on that side of the house, so we didn't want to like decrease the space that we have for the swimming pool. And when we had the fence installed, the fence company actually, believe it or not, recommended we did that to increase the size of our yard. We didn't know what we didn't know with that. I will say that the building permit was issued with that 6-foot fence on the drawing. So we made an agreement with our pool company. I then had a fence company come to my house because we have to have the pool fenced in to close the permit. And the guy at the new,
Well, no, it's also. That's why they came.
yeah, we need for the pool permit, it has to be surrounded by a fence. So I had a fence company come to give me a quote on the fence to enclose the pool. And he pointed out to me that we can't have a fence in front of our house. As soon as I knew, I called the building department, and they told me that they issued the permit as an maintain my 6-foot fence. Yes. They issued the permit as an oversight, and so we need now we need a variance to maintain our 6-foot fence. So I'd already made an agreement with the pool company on where the fence was going to be. I had engineers' drawings, I had everything set up, I had deposits and the whole deal. So I don't, if possible, I would not want to drop it to a 4-foot fence. For safety reasons. I'm afraid of people jumping over the fence. I also have 3 children at home, 8, 4, and 6 months. One with special needs, who's visually impaired, who would not be able to get out of a 6-foot gate, but may be able to get out of a 4-foot gate. And for privacy reasons, as a matter of fact, I feel like where the pool is, to have a 4-foot fence would be more of an undesirable thing for the neighborhood than to maintain where the 6-foot fence is. We did speak to some of our neighbors that are directly surrounding, that have a view of our property. All of them signed off that they were okay with it. I would also say that it does not, in my opinion, pose any safety risk to traffic at all. You can't even see it when you're coming around the corner there on Arthur Drive. I think that it's just a little, I'm just asking for a little consideration. I think it's just a little bit of room, and we're hoping you guys would consider that for us.
Would you like to add those documents into the record? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Right, nothing. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to oh, okay. Thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Carmine, you're up. The next case on the agenda, case number 19116, Claudio and Lalila Vera, 66 Wicks Path, Comac. The location of the property, the west side of Wicks Path, 190 feet south of Seminole Drive. The property is owned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 40 feet to 31 feet for an existing 327 square foot portico. to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the front yard from 25% to 28%, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the side yard from 25% to 47%, to reduce the minimum setback of a 4-foot retaining wall from the property line from 4 feet to 0 for walls A, B, and C, to reduce the minimum setback of an existing 6-foot PVC fence from a 4-foot retaining wall from 4 feet to 0 for walls A, B, and C, to increase the maximum height of a 6-foot fence on top of a 4-foot retaining wall from 6 feet to 10 feet for walls A, B, and C.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Claudio Vera. My address 66 Weeks Path, and Mr. Grasso is going to speak for me.
He just stated his name for the record. Yeah. I'm sorry?
She said she can't with the microphone.
Come on, here, take,
I was gonna say, if I hold it.
I'll switch. Don't hit any of the buttons.
Thanks. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Carmine Grasso from Cataldo Grasso Architects, office at 14 Carl Avenue in Smithtown. I submitted the mailing and posting affidavits and the certified mail receipts to planning this afternoon. I represent the Veras in their request for variances for paving, retaining walls, and setback for a front porch and portico. The retaining walls were installed to replace existing deteriorated wood walls. I did a little research and was looking back at old aerial photos, and from what I could see, at least going back to 2007, possibly 2004, the existing walls were there in the same location as the walls that are in question right now. The porch and the portico were installed recently to provide protection from the weather and to enhance the appearance of the house. If you saw pictures of the house previously to what it looks now, it's really been improved nicely and looks good and is a benefit to the neighborhood, we feel. The paving in the front yard is just a minor increase, mainly for the width of the driveway. I believe it's going from 25 to 28%. It's not much. There is a much larger increase on the side yard paving, but that reason for the side yard paving is it allows a pathway to go from the front yard to the rear yard and past the existing basement entrance, basement stairway. So that's why we need a variance for the paving in the side yard. And the fences are on top of the retaining walls for privacy, both for my client and the neighbors. We feel that to take the fences down or to make the fences lower would not provide the privacy for either the neighbors or my client. With regard to the area variance considerations, whether an undesirable change would be produced in the character of the neighborhood, we don't feel it would. The portico and the paving requests are relatively minor, and the walls are just replacing old deteriorated walls. So the walls, again, were already there. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method or other feasible method, we don't feel that it could be. If we had to move the walls to meet the setback requirements, it would reduce the usable area in the rear yard and would come at a great expense as well. Whether the requested variance is substantial, again, we don't feel that it is because of the location of the walls in the same location that they were previously. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the environmental conditions, again, no. There's no increase in sanitary flow from what we're doing. There's no increase in energy or water usage. So there's no effect on the drainage because of what's happening. And finally, whether the difficulty was self-created. I guess, yes, it kind of was because the work was done without, my client did not realize that he needed permits when he was replacing the walls and didn't know that the variance would be required for the portico in the front yard. And didn't know about the paving requirement as far as the 25% limit on the side yard and front yard setbacks. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
When we replaced the retaining walls, they were in the exact same spot.
From what I could, my client could attest to that, but yes, I looked at the aerial photos and they're right where the existing ones were.
Thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Thank you.
Planning?
Just two quick things, Mr. Chairman. One of the neighbors directly behind the applicant came into our office, I believe, at the end of last week. They had a concern that the slopes behind the applicant's property was cut into a little bit more than previously, and there is a rather large tree right near the property line, and that there's a possibility that the tree roots may have been damaged. It's a large tree, it's a leaning tree, and they're concerned that there's a possibility it could die and fall over. The second thing is, I'll let Sabrina discuss it. Apparently, there are 2 encroachments that are called out on the site plan,
Now, the tree is in the rear property.
the rear property.
rear? All right. Sabrina?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the building department has indicated that portions of the existing retaining wall B that has an existing 6-foot PVC fence on top encroaches into the neighboring residential parcel to the southwest, and that portions of existing retaining wall C that also has an existing 6-foot PVC fence in the same area encroach onto the neighboring residential parcel to the northeast.
We are aware of that, yes.
What's that?
We are aware of that. So-
Okay. So he'll have to take care of that?
I guess the 2 alternatives would either be to get rid of the encroachment or to enter into a agreement with the neighbors regarding that. We'll look at both possibilities and see which way we have to go with that, but yes.
Okay, fine. All right, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
You too.
The next case on the agenda is case number 19119, Craig Falasky, 72 River Heights Drive, Smithtown. The location of the property is the south side of River Heights Drive, 100 feet west of River Heights Court. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 50 feet to 47 feet for a proposed 313 square foot covered porch, to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 16 feet to 15 feet for a proposed 274 square foot garage addition and 316 square foot second story addition, to reduce the total side yards from 34 feet to 33 feet for a proposed 530 square foot and 316 square foot second floor additions and a proposed 274 square foot garage addition.
Good evening.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, Board. Craig and Kristen Falasky, 72 River Heights Drive, Smithtown, New York. As stated, we are here to request a variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 50 feet to 47, as well as the minimum side yard setback from 16 to 15 feet. The main part of it is for the garage. The garage has been there since 1965. It was approved previously. When we looked at doing this project, it was determined by the architect that it's actually over the line, and it's encroaching a foot over, so it's not legal, I guess. So our intention of building above it, we have to get the variance, and we're going to basically put it back exactly the way it is. It doesn't have the proper footing either, so we have to tear the garage down and rebuild it exactly where it is in the same exact spot, and then we're looking to build above it. So, you know, as far as creating an undesirable change, we're basically putting it back exactly where it is today. There's no change, and we're building above it for the extension of our primary bedroom. Can it be achieved by some other method? Again, it's basically going back exactly where it is. We're not looking to do anything different. We're not looking to expand beyond the existing footprint of what's there now. Is it substantial? We feel no. Again, it's the same thing. We're not looking to go huge. We're not going to, go any bigger. It's going exactly the way it is now. And, adverse effects to the environment. Yeah, we're not adding any bathrooms. We are part of this project. We're going to redo our bathroom, modernize it, but we're not adding anything that's going to increase the sewage flows or, affect any of the environment. Was it self-created? That part we feel is not self-created. Again, it's there. You could see the picture. It's going back exactly the same. The front variance from 47 to 50, I guess that's self-created. We are putting a porch, and to maintain the proper slope angle, I guess, of the porch, due to proper architectural guidelines. It's just the way it falls, it's going to be 3 feet beyond. So that's why we're requesting the variance of 3 feet to the front.
Okay. The footprint's staying the same, you're just going up.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
Thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Sabrina?
Mr. Chairman, the current application does require approval from the Department of Health. This information is needed in order to complete our environmental review. We have notified the applicant of their need to contact the department. And lastly, to ensure full compliance with our environmental review, we wish to consider information presented by the applicant and any comments from the public before making a recommendation. So therefore, no decision will be made tonight on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. You understand? We can't make a decision until you go to the health department. get a-
Yeah, we understand.
We understand. We've been in contact with the health department, and we're working with them to figure out what we can do. As far as, why it got triggered, and we're trying to sort of also work with some of your departments as well to see if there are any changes that can be made, to alleviate this issue as well.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved. Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19118, 155 West Main LLC. 155 West Main Street, Smithtown. The location of the property is the northeast corner of Main Street and Elliott Place. The property is zoned CB. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum parking from 99 to 23 spaces for an existing 413 square foot walk-in cooler.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. I've submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing to Mr. Donadio. I guess this is one of the oldest buildings in Smithtown, certainly built before there was any zoning in the town. And the old-timers used to call it the hotel, and I believe it was the Brooklyn Hotel in its infancy. Then it became Angelo's, and all of us can remember at least people my age can remember, going to Angelo's on a Friday night and having a pizza or spaghetti and bringing the kids there, and it was a great place. Then it became Arthur Avenue. And then it became Union Station, and then it became Croxley's. My client, the applicant, has spent probably upwards of 3 years completely renovating, let's call it Angelo's, the Angelo's building, and gutted it, and has had many, many conferences and meetings with the building department and the planning department in order to make this building, first of all, safe, and secondly, the beautiful building that it once was. So anyway, we're here today because when you granted the variance on February 23rd, 2022, we didn't need the walk-in box. So you approved a variance from 98 spaces to 23 spaces. Turns out that for the new restaurant, which by the way will be called Bull Smith's Tavern, and it'll be serving American fare type food, we need the walk-in box. So the request is now changed from 98 spaces to 99 spaces because theoretically we need 99 spaces because of the addition of the walk-in box, which we thought we weren't going to use, but the new tenant needs that box. At the last hearing in 2022, we brought out the fact, and I guess the reason why you granted such a substantial variance is because we do have parking agreements with the Long Island Railroad. So, given all of the facts, and I don't know if any of you have passed by the building, but I got to say my client really did a beautiful job in the renovation, so that it will be an asset to the town. Will it change the character of the area? No, it was always a restaurant, and before that a hotel, and I guess maybe they serve food there, I don't know. With a benefit sought by the applicant, can we do it in some other method? Not really. We really need that walk-in box, believe it or not. And whether the requested area variance is substantial, well, the first time we tried to explain, and I think the board understood that, yeah, it's substantial, but we do have agreements for parking with Long Island Railroad. Whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect on the environment, no, it's been a restaurant for probably at least 75, 80 years. Whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. We did have the walk-in box there. It's there now, and we thought we were going to knock it down, but again, we need it for the restaurant to serve its customers. So we asked the board for its favorable consideration.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you. No.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Sabrina?
No, thank you.
Nothing. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Have a motion to close the application, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Good night.
The next case on the agenda, case number 19111, Amjad Malik, 85 Main Street, Kings Park. The location of the property is the east side of Fort Salonga Road, State Route Route 25A, 282 feet west of Thompson Street. The property is zoned CB. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum required parking from 31 to 4 spaces for a proposed change of use from dance studio to a deli store slash bagel store slash deli.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Guy W. Germano, 4250 Veterans Memorial Highway, Hallbrook, New York, for the applicant. The applicant is here, as well as our traffic expert has prepared a study on the parking availability in the area. The variance is, the request is to reduce the minimum parking requirements from 31 spaces to 4 spaces for the proposed use and the change of use from a dance studio to a bagel deli store in the CD district. The dance studio was, I understand, there for about 30 years, from the late 80s until now. I think if, well, I have here a copy of the, oh, you have that up there. Okay, good. Before I get into what we're proposing, I want to tell you what it's not going to be. This is not going to be a smoke shop. We did hear that someone had placed a sign in the building saying "smoke shop coming." That was someone who wanted to rent the building from the landlord prior to my client. The landlord did not rent to him, and my client was able to get the lease. It's not going to be a convenience store. It will not sell beer, hard cider, hard seltzer, hard lemonade, or alcohol of any kind. It will not sell tobacco products of any kind. It will not sell vaping products of any kind. It's not even going to sell lottery tickets. My client does not want to sell anything that requires a patron to be ID'd. So that is what it's not going to be. It's going to be a deli, a bagel shop, and I have here, I don't know if you have them, copies of the floor plan. It might be easy, I can't see it, maybe I'll, do you have copies in front of you?
Why don't you just give us some extra ones?
I have copies of the elevation, the floor plan, and the site plan. Turning first to the elevation, you can see what the elevation is proposed to the building there. If you have my sheet, it'll follow in order. It's similar to what's there now. It'll be cleaned up. If you turn to the next page, you can see the floor plan. The plan on the right of the page identifies the various areas, and you can see very large kitchen area, walk-in cooler, storage area, restrooms. As you come to the front, you'll see that on the left-hand side, we have the deli counters and preparation counters. More toward the center, you will see there's a counter for coffee, tea, espresso, those kinds of hot drinks. Then in the center, we have seating for 16. Then there's some shelves, and against on the right-hand side, you'll see refrigerators for beverages, and also on the wall to the back, you have a freezer wall for ice cream, ice, and stuff like that. The intent is to provide a very nice deli with sort of some unique products to the area. My client intends to sell oil, olive oils, various kinds of olive oils, vinegars, sort of high-end condiments, fresh pasta, and things like that as part of the deli, as well as some Italian bread, other kinds of breads at the deli. The plan, if you turn the page, you'll see the site plan, I believe. The next page shows you the site plan, which shows that we have parking for 4 in the front of the building. So there's parking spaces for 4 in the front of the building. Those are the only parking spaces that are provided on the site. The building was built like that, I guess in the early 80s, from what I understand, circa early 80s. As I indicated before, there was a dance studio there for quite some time. As far as the character of the neighborhood goes, there was a deli across the street, I think Edelweiss is what it was called. It was there for 40 years, so I heard. It's still there. I mean, you can still see the deli, but it's vacant now. That deli was there for many years, and from my view of the site, they had no parking at all at that deli. This, now, in terms of the number of employees, it'll vary depending on the time of day, from 4 to 6, and the intent is to have them park in the municipal lot, which is just down a little bit North Main, where there are no parking restrictions, so the employees would park there. The hours are proposed would be typical deli hours, opening at 5 a.m. to get ready, and then closing at around 6, might be a little later in the summer, when it's a little light, a little later, but that's it. It's not a late night operation. There won't be any beer, alcohol, cigarettes to bring anybody there. It's not a place to hang out. It's a place to get food for lunch. Lunch is the big time for food, and I guess Sunday morning for bagels, and Saturday lunch, and there'll be some early evening patrons. As far as the character of the neighborhood goes, I think a deli is in this location. CD is within the character of the neighborhood. There was a deli across the street that's now closed. As far as, I don't think that would create any adverse change. The can the applicant figure out another way to provide the deli without the variance? Actually, no, there's just no parking at the building, and there never was. Is it substantial? Well, we're asking to go from 31 to 4, but if you look at the plan, you'll see that a good part, almost half of the building, the 4,000 square feet, is devoted to the kitchen, the deli counters, so not really public spaces. We have seating for 16, so it's not the kind of place where you're going to get a lot of people at once coming in, generally. And when they do, it would be basically, and our traffic expert will testify, it's around lunchtime, the middle of the day. So it wouldn't be during the peak traffic periods. I don't believe, and I think our traffic expert will testify, that there won't be any adverse impact to the neighborhood based on the traffic proposed from this facility. And was it self-created? Well, I guess if the building's been there forever and there's no other way to use it, you have to come in here and ask for variance. I don't think there'd be much, it would be hard to find a use that wouldn't require a parking variance in that location with the few parking spaces there are for this. And now I'd like to introduce.
Could you just repeat your last statement? I don't think she got it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said I don't think there would be many uses that could occupy a 4,000 square foot space like that, that would only require 4 parking spaces. Certainly none on the code, unless maybe even a warehouse would require more than that. And you certainly wouldn't want a warehouse in the middle of a downtown area. Anyway, I'd like to introduce Wayne Muller, our traffic consultant and PE.
Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Wayne Muller with the firm of Robinson and Muller Engineering. Our offices are at 50 Elm Street, Huntington, New York. For the record, I'd just like to submit copies of an analysis that we prepared, and then an 11 by 17 copy of one of the exhibits that's contained within our report, just to make it a little bit easier to see.
Good, you? Say hello to Chris for me. Thank you.
Okay, to briefly summarize our report, as Mr. Germano's indicated, we did perform an analysis to determine what the parking characteristics within the area surrounding the site are, and came up with a quasi-estimate of the activity that we believe would be generated by a facility of this type. My report that I just handed in is dated April 23rd, 2024. And essentially what it says is that, as Mr. Germano indicated, the use before the board this evening requires 31 parking spaces in accordance with the zoning ordinance, and the site really can provide 4 parking spaces, as shown in the photograph that's on the screen to my right. To determine the level of parking activity that's in and around the site, we studied the parking on street in the areas that are shown in the exhibit EX2 that I just handed up. And essentially, what that exhibit shows is the areas in which we observe the parking activity and the regulations for its use. As you can see, along the site frontage, there's a red line, meaning that there is no parking available directly in front of the site. However, to the east of the site, there's 1 hour parking between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Across the street on Main Street, there's no parking from Pulaski Road to Carlson Avenue. We studied Carlson Avenue, in which there are 2 areas in which there's available on-street parking. That parking is 15-minute parking between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. As we go further to the east on Main Street on the south side, there are parking areas which provide 30-minute parking between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m., and that's essentially along the closed deli's frontage. And then as we go further to the east, there are 2 areas which provide 1 hour parking between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. And then just to the north on that, on the north side of Main Street, there's an area that provides 1 hour parking between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And then we looked at the on-street parking on Thompson Street in the areas that abut the commercial properties. And in those areas, it's unregulated parking, meaning people could park there all day if they wanted to. We studied the parking in those areas between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. on a Sunday, April 7th, 2024. Again, on Saturday, April 6th, between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m., and on Friday, April 12th, between 7 a.m. and 2 p.m., and those would correspond to the peak times associated with the use of the bagel store / deli in that area. And what we found was that the peak demand in that area, there's a total of 44 available spaces within the green and yellow areas, and we found that the peak demand on Friday occurred at 12:30 p.m., where there were 9 vehicles parked within those areas. On Saturday, the peak demand occurred at 10 a.m., in which there were also 9 vehicles parked within those areas. And on Sunday, the peak demand occurred at 1:30 p.m., in which there were 7 vehicles parked within those areas. And all times, there was available on-street parking within those areas. Simultaneously with those observations, I had my technician go down to observe the activity at the Bagel King, which is just located a little bit further east on the north side of Main Street, to determine like what the level of activity occurs during those timeframes at that facility, because it's very similar in use. And what we found was that the maximum number of cars that we saw at the Bagel King was 10 vehicles in the store at any one given time. And what we did was we observed the number of groups. So if, for instance, if I went in with my daughter, we would be 1 vehicle. If there was a single person standing there, there would be 1 vehicle, excluding the employees, because we believe that they're obviously theoretically should park in the Long Island Railroad lot, which has unregulated parking and plenty of parking during all these timeframes. In addition, in studies that I've prepared in the past for bagel stores, specifically Bagel Boss, located in Roslyn on Willis Avenue, we utilize that information to determine what level of activity we'd anticipate here. The Bagel Boss activity was a little bit higher than what we saw at Bagel King, and using that information, we would anticipate that this facility would generate a maximum of 17 vehicles, and those mainly customers. The Bagel Boss, the Bagel King down the block would have 10. We would anticipate 10. I would like to point out that the roadway Willis Avenue in Roslyn is significantly busier than Main Street and Kings Park, meaning that the average annual daily traffic on that road is somewhere around 14,000 vehicles per day. And in this area of Main Street, it's around 600 to 800 vehicles per day. It's a much more densely populated area, and as such, we would anticipate the activity to be greater. So, and also, we took a look at the activity as indicated in the report of specific areas in the municipal parking area located at the train station, where we would anticipate our employees to park. And the areas that we studied are located in Exhibit 3 appended to my report. And you could see in the light blue areas, we observed that the parking activity in those areas during the same time frames that we observed the areas on street on both the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we found that there's a lot of available parking in those areas for the employees to physically be able to park their cars and not impede the activity at the railroad station. So therefore, based on the studies that we performed, we found that there is sufficient parking within the area to accommodate the activity generated by the change in use of this facility from the dance studio to a bagel store / deli that will not impact parking conditions within this area. I would like to point out, too, that I have studied dance studios in the past. Their activity is a little bit different, where you have parents primarily coming in to drop off students and then leaving. The only time that there would be a significant amount of parking is during the arrival and dismissal timeframes of the various different classes, or if they were to have a recital. As Mr. Germano indicated, and as also contained in my report, many of the uses that are permitted uses within the zoning district would have similar type parking characteristics, meaning that they would all be primarily relying on on-street parking. Specifically, I mean, a restaurant would be permitted there at a parking ratio similar to the bagel / deli of 1:100. A bank could theoretically go into that space, which has a parking requirement of 1 space for every 150 square feet. And retail is, again, similar in nature at 1:100. So, I mean, as a matter of fact, any use that were to occupy that space would be encountering the same conditions. Spaces, the site only has 4 parking spots, and it would strictly rely on the on-street parking in order to satisfy its demand. The nice part about this use, as Mr. Germano indicated, is that the store will primarily have its peak times during the morning, and then again in the afternoon for lunch. Later on in the day, the activity at a bagel store or a deli is pretty slim, especially since they're not going to be serving alcohol or selling alcohol, cigarettes, or have a lottery machine. So the applicant is conscious of the fact that he's got a limited number of on-site spaces, and there's available on-street, though it's fairly limited, and in fact, there's only 44 within that area, and he's trying not to overburden the property with miscellaneous sales, that he's trying to focus on his core business. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I looked at the study, and did you do a study early in the morning when people most not come in at like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, we started at 7 o'clock in the morning and then
Yeah.
ended around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I go to the bagel store early. I like to get there before nobody goes. So,
I just have a question, just for clarification. Is there cooking on this premise? Do you make bagels here? No, hold it. If you're going to talk, you have to come up.
Yeah, my name is Amjad Malik, and I like to open up the bagel shop and deli. I have a thought to buy the bagels in the beginnings, and if I see it's more cheaper to make bagels over there, so maybe in the future I gotta make it over there.
Okay, so it's basically right now a deli that sells bagels.
It's bagel shop and deli,
Right, right. You're not going to make the bagels on the premise.
not in the beginning.
Because like Adrian said, my bagel store, you don't get there by 8 o'clock in the morning, the line's out the door. You know, and the parking lot's packed, you know. I'm like you, I have to get up like a little before 7 to get there.
but
You
I
know.
think that's why I believe that it was important for us to take a look at the bagel store down the road, which is a similar activity, similar type of use, and that's why when we were doing our spot observations of the parking, I had my technician stop in there to see what the level of activity was. And again, it was around, we would anticipate about 10 vehicles that we saw, excluding the employees. But just in the bagel store itself, buying whatever they were buying.
Let me another question. In the other stores, there is parking in front of the building. Your bagel store has no parking in front of this building on the street.
The
On the
bagel store,
street.
Bagel King, is strictly on street. It's located further to the east.
Yes, I know where it
In a
is.
mid-block section of Main Street. They don't provide any on-site parking as compared to this facility, which provides 4 spots. So in a certain aspects, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, but yeah, we do provide a limited quantity of on-site parking, whereas the store down the block doesn't provide any.
Question or a comment. If I understand, just to summarize so we know where we're coming from, we're saying that there's about 44 on-street parking spaces.
In the areas that are delineated
Correct,
on
the green and
map.
the yellow.
Green and yellow. Red, there's 0.
Right, and you're anticipating, depending on the usage, from 10 to 15 parking spaces in use at a given point in time.
Correct.
All right, now what's your turnover time for these vehicles? Because the dance studio, for instance, probably has people parking and staying for an hour if they're gonna watch their child dance. What's your turnover time here for parking?
It's relatively quick. I mean, it's probably 10 to 15 minutes tops. Some would be even quicker.
So you'd
If you
be
just-
utilizing about a quarter to a third of the spaces, 10 to 15 out of roughly 45, give or take. And you would anticipate people would be in a parking space for maybe 15 minutes.
Tops.
And then rolling over.
Correct. Yeah,
Because
it's
I share the concern of my colleagues that 4 spaces on site seems extraordinarily low. You're talking about 16 seats. You'd have to put 4 people in each of 4 cars, fill those seats, and you'd still have people online shopping. You'd still have employees inside. I guess you can require your employees to park someplace else. That remains to be seen whether they do that. But with all of that said and done, if you're using a quarter to a third of the spaces just for your site, there are other businesses and buildings in the area that are going to need to use the parking.
Correct.
I don't want to see it get too
But
congested.
the thing is, their activity, albeit except for the deli that's closed across the street, is included in the observations of the street parking that we perform. So any of the other businesses that are open their activity was included in the counts that we took.
In the 10 to 15 spaces that you think would...
In the counts that we took. And again, in those areas, we saw a very limited amount of vehicular parking on street. I mean, at any one given time, right, we saw on Friday, the maximum that we saw parked occurred at 12:30 p.m. In those areas, there were 9 cars parked, leaving, what is it, not 44 minus 9 is 35 vacant spots.
Okay, so I may be missing something. Wasn't there one statistic about 17 spaces in your...
Well, that's what we're saying, that using using observations that our firm performed over at Bagel Boss in Roslyn, using a rate that we calculated based on the square footage of the building area, we would anticipate this use, all things being equal, to have a maximum demand of 17. But, as I stated before, Roslyn is a much more densely populated area with a lot more traffic on the road, so therefore, we would anticipate the level of activity to be closer to the Bagel King down the block, which translates to about 10 customer vehicles, excluding employees, because it was hard to tell how many employees were in the store at that time and whether or not they had their own vehicle.
And we still have the 4, so you can deduct that.
Correct. So essentially, if we were to assume that the Bagel King activity is going to be similar to the activity that we saw here, excluding the employees, which we would hope they would park in the railroad lot because it's available and it's free and you're not taking up spaces for customers, we would take the 10 vehicles minus the 4 that we have on site, so our demand on the street network would only be 6, which is pretty de minimis. And they're turning over, so, and not
Yeah,
everyone's
I
there.
recognize you're going to have a faster turnover than some businesses, because
Correct.
most people don't linger in a bagel store for more than 7, 8, 9 minutes by the time they shop and get out.
Correct. And there's some people who may sit in the chair, eat their bagel.
But even
and have
that
a
dining
coffee.
is relatively quick
It's,
compared to other
yeah, you're not
places.
hanging out at the
I
bagel
get that piece of the
store,
puzzle.
yeah. So, I mean, I think in this area within Kings Park, based on the fact that there is available on-street parking, and the activity will be quick, but again, it's gonna be during the morning and the midday, and then in the evening, the activity is gonna be relatively minimal.
Is any of the parking there metered parking, or it's all untimed?
No, it's all just timed, with signed. There's
Okay.
no meters.
Understood.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? Are you done with your presentation?
I just wanted to make one comment. Just want to add one comment. First of all, I misspoke when I said it was 4,000 square feet. It's only 3,100 square feet. That's where we get the 31 cars. And the other thing is, Mr. Malik is going to make a substantial investment in the building in order to renovate it from the dance studio. You haven't been in it, but it's kind of a mess. You know, it was used for a long time. Has a raised floor. It's, you know, needs to be totally converted into a different kind of use. So he's going to spend probably a couple $100,000 in this investment. I think that's something that will benefit the community as well. Any questions?
I'm just looking, you have quite a number of seats
16
available in there.
16 seats.
So you're expecting some people to come in, I guess, order sandwiches or whatnot, sit there, consume them, and then
Yes,
leave?
sure.
So we're not going to get a rapid turnover.
Well, I think most bagel places, they have seats. At least the ones that I've been in Huntington, they all provide a certain amount of seating. Typically, in Huntington, it would be 15 seats or less. And that's due to the health department requirements, because if you go 16 seats or greater, 17 seats are considered a restaurant, and the sanitary flow is entirely different for a restaurant versus a food shop of 16 seats or less. It's considered to be a retail use in the health department's eyes. He couldn't put a real restaurant in there if he wanted to. He doesn't have the sanitary density. There's no way.
Thank you.
And the other thing I'd just like to point out that, you know, in terms of turnover time and seating, it's typically, we have a Bagel Boss where I live in Bay Shore, and, you know, there's some tables there. Most of the time, people are sitting there waiting for their order to be filled, and they get up and leave. The other thing is that there's no alcohol here, so there's no real incentive for someone to, you know, it's not like you're being asked to, you know, have a drink, have another drink, or whatever. You're going to grab a soda, your sandwich or your bagel, finish and leave. I don't think it's...
I have seen people, not to interrupt you, but I mean, I've seen people sit down in a bagel store, take their bagel, take their cup of coffee, open their newspaper, and then just sit and read.
Well,
And
there
that-
might be a few people like that. I mean,
More than a few.
yeah. Any other questions?
Are you done with your presentation, sir? Okay. Anybody have any questions on the board?
Thank you very much.
Just have one question
Planning?
for either Mr. Germano or Mr. Muller, whoever can answer the question for me. Next door to you, immediately to the east, there is a vacant lot that has parking on it. Does the applicant have any agreement with the owner of that lot to utilize the parking in that
No,
area?
he doesn't.
He does
He
not.
does not have a current agreement.
Or is there any discussion about that possibly
There
happening?
was a discussion, but I think that it's not available.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the current application requires approval from the Department of Health. DEW has notified the applicant's representative of their need to contact the Health Department and provide sanitary calculations. The applicant has since provided us with such calculations, but we will still need to see documentation that an application was successfully submitted to the Department of Health in order to complete our environmental review. And lastly, to ensure full compliance with our environmental review, we wish to consider information presented by the applicant as well as any comments from the public before we make a recommendation to the board. Therefore, no decision will be made tonight.
Yeah, we understand, and we're working with the health department now. Thank you.
All the information from the health department. Okay. Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? No, you can't come up now. You raised your hand before. Come on. Good evening.
Hello. My name is Joseph D'Antona, and I am responsible for 3 of the 8 properties that are located, yes.
Joseph, could you
Yep.
spell your last name? so we
D
get it correct?
apostrophe A-N-T-O-N-A. As I was saying, I'm responsible for 3 of the 8 properties located on Main Street in between Old Dock Road and Thompson. I'm the proprietor of the Balance Health and Wellness Center, which is located at 99 Main Street. I'm the owner of 57 Main Street, which is on the corner of Main Street and Thompson. And I'm also the owner of 81 Main Street, which is the parking lot next to the property that we're talking about. I didn't take a bunch of attorneys, nor do I have bodyguards with me today, but something tells me that after I'm done speaking, I may have to ask Liam or someone to walk me to my car. So let's just go with, I want to start by taking 1 minute of your time to go over a little bit of history. On October 13th of 2023, Mr. Malik requested a lease from that said parking lot. My parking lot is 81 Main Street. I saw a picture of it before up there, which has 27 spaces. It's located right next to the 3,100 square foot building that Mr. Malik is interested in renting. The lease was drawn up and emailed to both him as well as his attorney. I hired a blacktop contractor to reface the parking for him. As a matter of fact, I saw a picture up there with the actual blacktop truck doing the blacktop that I paid for. I paid for it. Amjad said, Mr. Malik said that a survey of the parking lot was necessary and that he would pay for it. It was done by Scalise Land Surveyors, and the price of that was $975. Again, Mr. Malik said that he was going to take care of it. About a little over a month later, on November 17th of 2023, Mr. Malik did not sign his lease, nor did he give me a security deposit or make any payments of any sort to me. So the lease was rescinded. An email stating that the lease was being canceled was sent to Mr. Malik as well as his attorney. About a month or so later, on December 11th, I received a signed lease in the mail with 2 checks. I called Mr. Malik and told him that I was not leasing the parking lot to him. He told me that I should hold on to the checks and that everything is going to be okay. I repeated that I am not leasing the parking lot to him. About 4 months later, on March 5th of 2024, Mr. Malik texted me that I have to pay for the survey. I told him that he said he was going to pay for it. His reply to me via text was, "Now thing is change." Anyway, I paid the $975 for the survey. 2 days after that, I received a phone call and an email from a Garden City law firm for Chelly, Deegan, and Terrera. I was told that Amjad had retained them so that he can pursue the use of my parking lot. I hired an attorney for that, and my attorney shut them down. That same week, another attorney approaches me, and I had to hire my lawyer a second time for his second attorney, Arnold Hopman, to shut down the fact that I'm not leasing the parking lot to him. Okay, so we're here today. I'll get that. We're here today because Amjad Malik wants to rent a huge 3,100 square foot building to be used as a bagel store or a convenience store. I'm sorry, not a convenience store, although he did say that to me when he was leasing it, a bagel store or a deli. I think it's unrealistic that a bagel store with 4 parking spaces is anything that's going to be less than disastrous to the community. I heard Mr. Germano, if I'm correct, I apologize if I'm incorrect, saying that there'll be seating for 16 people, there'll be minimum 4 to 6 employees, and of course, as anybody who's ever been to a bagel store on a Saturday or Sunday morning, there's potentially 100 people that are going in and out of that parking lot. It's ridiculous. It's only a concern. Now, they brought up King Bagel also, King Bagel, which has no parking, but King Bagel is also a very dangerous situation. It's only less than 1,000 square feet, where this building is 3 times that size at 3,100 square feet. If anybody, and you can do your survey or whatever you like, you could go see King Bagel. There are people literally parking across the street all morning long, just walking, crossing two ways of traffic, and I think that's not exactly what you want to recreate 1 block down the road. Anyway, I feel very strongly that the people that will be, if you allow this variance to go through for that kind of store to happen, my property, which is located right next door to 81 Main Street, is absolutely going to be used. And I don't want to be the kind of person to tell people that they can't park there by knocking on their windows or putting stickers on their doors or putting up big signs saying no parking. So that's why I very strongly object to allowing a bagel store or a deli to be in a 3,100 square foot building with only 4 parking spaces. It's not realistic that the employees are going to park in the municipal parking lot that is 2 blocks down the way. No clerk is going to park 2 blocks away to go to work. And no people are going to park in the municipal parking lot either to go to a bagel store. And that's just my opinion. And
All right, thank you very much.
you're welcome. Have a nice day.
Yeah, you can come back now.
If you would take a look at the exhibit that I handed in regarding the parking regulations, as far as crossing the street and comparing that to Bagel King to this facility, you'll note that there's a crosswalk that's installed crossing Main Street on the, I guess that'd be the west side of Carlson Avenue, in which the state DOT installed a crosswalk which vehicles stop at to allow pedestrians to cross. And that's directly across the street from the subject property. So you wouldn't have a situation where people would be crossing because there's a crosswalk there. Unlike other areas on Main Street in Kings Park, the state DOT, in their infinite wisdom, chose to put a crosswalk just to the western boundary of the property line of the subject property. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this application before we close it? Anyone else? Would you like to come back and?
The comments we just heard from the owner of the parking lot to the east really aren't relevant to the application. Our application was made without reference to that parking lot, and there may have been, the application was made without reference to that parking lot, without relying on it, and what we heard was a dispute between he and my client. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there, and I'm not part of that. But it appears that that is now over. As I said before, we have no lease for that property, and I don't know why we had to hear all of this stuff about what happened with the lease. But in any event, we were not relying on that, and I believe Our expert has shown that there is a lot of available parking in the general area. Well, for the use that's been identified and the study that's been done, we have available parking on the street. And we have the 4 spaces that would be, if we had parking in front of our store, we wouldn't have any more than 4 spaces. We have those inside. So in terms of the location in the area, there are many buildings with that across the street especially, and also on our side that have no parking. And it's just that kind of a neighborhood. If you can show that you can utilize the available on-street parking without causing any undue impact to the neighborhood, I think we have made our burden. And we would request your consideration for the application.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. And that concludes the first part of our meeting for tonight. All right, the first case tonight was case number 19112, Timothy Drake. That has been adjourned to May 7th. Next case is case 19114, Michael Napolitano.
Okay. I move that we approve this application as presented.
Motion has been made to approve as presented. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, 4-0. Next case is case 19115, Michael Messia.
I move that we approve this application as it is presented.
Second?
Motion has been made to approve as presented. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, 4-0. Next case is case 19116, Claudio Vera. I don't
Okay.
think we have any action on that, can we?
Yeah, I think we type 2. Do we need to put a condition on it that the encroachments
Doesn't
be?
he have, yeah, he said he was going to enter some kind of an agreement.
Said either move the fence or enter an agreement. He's gonna have to explore either option.
Himself, so we can approve it.
We can approve it based.
To either remove the encroachments or enter into an easement agreement
Yeah.
with the
Okay.
adjoining
Okay.
neighbors.
Okay, I move that we approve this application as presented with the condition that they remove the fence or enter into an agreement with the neighbor. What, honey?
Fence and retaining wall.
And retaining walls. Yes, okay.
A motion has been made with conditions. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, 4-0. Next case is case 19117, Jeffrey Pachuco. That has been to May 7th. Next case is case 19119, Craig Galaski. No action. Next case is case 19118, 155 West Main Street, LLC.
Just for the record, our seeker is limited to the one parking variance being requested. Any future proposed development will be subject to further secra review.
That's for 155, right? Okay.
I can approve that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm just putting it on the record that our
Okay.
seeker is just for that one variance.
Okay, thank you, I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
Okay, I move that we approve this application as presented.
Motion has been made to approve as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried, 4-0. Next case is case 19111, Aman Malik. No action. Next case is case 19113, J. Nazaro Partnership, LP, Taco Bell, that has been adjourned to May 21st. And the last case is case 19061, Mary Sue Namus. That has been adjourned to May 21st. That's their final adjournment. That's all I have.
I do have a couple of things, well, at least one thing that I wanted to go over with you on the back of the agenda. That would be case number 19046, Giovanni Stanco. So this was an application that came before the board, I believe, back in January. This was a proposed detached garage in Fort Salonga on Heights Road. I don't recall the exact square footage, I can look it up, but it was going to be 2 stories and it was going to be 27 feet tall. And I know that the board had issues with the height, and I think that there may have been some issue with the size of the garage as well. I was contacted by the applicant's architect or engineer, wanting to know, what was going on and why they haven't received approval. And I explained to them 2 things. Number 1, there's no secra determination on the application yet. And number 2, that the board had expressed concerns on the record about the size and the height of the garage.
Is this the one where the woman appeared and complained that they would be looking right into her backyard?
No.
I
Okay.
do not believe that
It's
would,
okay.
that would be the other one that's adjourned.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So after having that conversation, he put together a packet of information that I want to pass out to everybody so that you can take a look at it, you can review it, you can get back to me with some feedback so that I can contact the person who sent this information to me and let them know what direction the board would like to see them go in with the proposal.
There was a letter, wasn't there, that was emailed to us from the applicant today?
Yes, in fact, here's the packet. I made hard copies just in case you want them.
Okay.
So
Good, thank you.
you can feel
I
free
have
to
in my
take one
notes
and
that
pass
it was
them down.
1,500 square feet, so.
1,500 square feet, 2 stories,
27 feet.
27 feet tall. Yeah.
Three-car garage.
It's,
With
well,
lifts,
If
so
you
it'll be
look,
6.
if, and I also have plans for you to look at. I don't know if these are the original plans that were submitted with the application, but these are plans that we received today in an email, which actually shows the elevations and the floor plan of the garage, and it looks to me like the garage can hold a minimum of 6 cars.
cars,
Only?
I don't know if you want to look at these or not. No?
I don't remember, is there heat
I do not recall.
and any kind of plumbing in
I
there?
would assume that there would at least be electric. I don't know about plumbing. If you're operating car lifts, you would need electricity to operate them.
So this 2-story wasn't going to have a second floor, it was going to be,
Well, it had a small, I think there was a loft area. I don't know how big it is proposed to be, but there is a loft area on the second floor. So what planning did for the board is we basically did a search of previous BZA cases where anybody within the area of, say, 500 to 1,000 foot radius came in with an application for a detached garage that was greater than 15 feet in height and 750 square feet in size. And we found quite a few cases that the board decided on previously. And if everybody would like a copy of these,
Yeah,
I'd be happy to give you one. So I'll just pass them down one at a time. There's about 8 to 10 of them.
but not 9.
Not 9. And I don't have any parking that I can offer, but
Thank you.
What day?
Can I have one, please?
would you like one?
I would love.
Well, if they have any left over, you
Okay,
can.
thank you.
You can probably have these. I just, let me see if I had this in the right order. So I'd like you just to take note of the first case that I
Yeah, it's
handed
him.
you.
It's Giovanni.
So, just so that the board is aware, the applicant owns 2 homes on Brewster. The one where the proposed attached garage is to be built, and the second directly across the street, which back in January of 2018, the board approved a variance for a garage addition, bringing the total square footage of that garage to 1,139 square feet.
Uh-huh. Well, what was the height?
It was an attached garage, so it's permitted to be the same height as the dwelling. Height doesn't actually come into play unless it exceeds the 35-foot max. There are a few other cases. There's another case very close by, Brewster Avenue, case number 16629, Gary Forte. You can see that the size of the garage was increased to 893 square feet. The height was at 22 feet.
22.
There was another house on Heights Road that was for Anna Mancini and Brian Ward. The board approved a construction of an attached garage of 894 square feet, and another one on Brewster, which was, the original request was to increase it to 1,400 square feet and to increase the height from 15 feet to 28 feet. The board approved it to be 1,000 square feet only with conditions, and the height to be a maximum of 18 feet with conditions. So,
So there wasn't any that we did approve at 27, am I
no,
correct?
no, there are no,
The 20,
we couldn't find anything that
22 was the highest.
22 was like the absolute
Okay.
max. Want to take a look? So all that information is for all of you if you want to review it. And again, if you can, just when you come to some kind of a conclusion about what direction you'd like to see the applicant go in, just, give me some feedback, and that way I can contact them and let them know. And if anybody does need a copy of the plans, I have 3 sets here if anybody wants to take one. And just so that the board is aware, I do not have them ready for this evening. They will be ready for the next meeting. Case number 18944, John Barnett. It has been on the back of the agenda for quite some time. This case, if the board recalls, the applicant was requesting variances for a driveway and a curb cut on a cul-de-sac, which the property has frontages on 2 streets. There was a condition, a covenant within the subdivision approval for that cul-de-sac that the owner of that property could not have access onto that cul-de-sac. The applicant does not have approval from the planning board to get a waiver from that covenant. Therefore, the board cannot take any action or make a decision on this case. So we would recommend that we prepare findings for the board, that the board can deny this application without prejudice, which would give the applicant the opportunity to come back and make an application subsequent to getting relief from the planning board from the covenant.
This is the case
Okay.
where the highway department, did they come in?
Yes,
And the highway department came in, right?
yes.
And gave him some alternatives, am I correct?
Several, yes.
Several, okay.
Yes. And that is all I have.
All right. And that concludes our meeting for tonight.